I just cleaned out my office at work. Those 2 grocery bags are filled to the brim with every single desk toy that I've had in my possession for the past 3 years. And all of a sudden, it just became very real that I've quit my job. A job that I had considered to be my dream job at one point in time. Best believe I am feeling a type of way about this. So I thought that it might be a little bit of an interesting video idea and something that I would personally want to document, to have to look back on, to not only show you some of the atrocities that I've kept on my desk and subjected my coworkers to for the past 3 years, because I was at one point curating a museum of oddities, so that's a thing in itself, but also intellectualize and sift through some of the feelings that I'm feeling right now, because I'm feeling a lot, and it's mainly anxiety. And I was talking to my therapist the other day, Christopher, we love him, just about this whole process. And he was like, well, what if you choose to reframe your thinking, all this anxiety you're feeling, what if you restructure it, and instead of deciding that you're anxious, tell yourself that you're excited about things, and then see where that leads your mind. And that shockingly kind of helped, because it kind of forced me to focus on the things that I am actually excited for, and the whole reason I decided to quit. But on the note of therapy, I am very excited that in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, that BetterHelp is the sponsor of this video. May is a month to raise awareness, fight stigma, and provide support to those of us who are suffering with mental health. This year's theme is Together in Mental Health, and it's encouraging people to share their stories and inspire others to start prioritizing their own mental health. I think for me, choosing to focus on my own mental well-being has been the hardest and the most rewarding thing that I have ever done in my entire life, because it has not been comfortable at various points along the process. I'll just tell you that much. But gaining insight into knowing yourself and the things that you do and why you do them has been so beneficial and has helped improve nearly every aspect of my life. And that's not to say that I do not spiral from time to time, because I totally do. It's just that when I'm in a complete tailspin, I now have the tools to help course correct a little bit easier. And if you don't know what BetterHelp is, they offer customized online therapy that includes video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So if you don't want to see anybody face to face, if that's intimidating to you, you don't have to. BetterHelp is more affordable than traditional offline therapy, and you can apply for financial aid during the sign-up process, and they also accept HSA benefits. BetterHelp offers a broad range of expertise in their over 20,000 plus therapist network that gives you access to help that may or may not be available in your area. It could not be more simple to begin. You just fill out a questionnaire to help assess what your specific needs are, and then you get matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. You can then schedule secure video and phone sessions, plus you can exchange unlimited messages, and everything you share is completely confidential. And if for whatever reason you and your therapist don't mesh, they make it really easy to request a new one at no additional charge at any time. So this mental health month, if you or someone you know is struggling, please share BetterHelp with them. If you use my link, betterhelp.com/Beatrice, that's better HELP, you can get 10% off of your first month. So huge thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into it, but I think that I'm actually going to drive home first, because it's actually really hot in this car, and I just realized that trying to take all of these small little items out of this bag and show them to you is going to be an absolute nightmare in the car. So let's go home. First and foremost, let me set the ambiance of my office. First thing when you walked in, I had this rappelling from the ceiling on some fishing wire. My boss got this for me. I mentioned when I first started there that I like octopuses, and everyone just kept bringing them to me as sacrifice. Octopus. Octopus. Oh, that's a spider ring. Just kidding. It's not an octopus. I thought it was. My mistake. So I bet you're curious what I did and where I did it, because I have been being very mysterious about that. I'm a graphic designer. I work for the Department of Defense as a contractor at the Space Force base. Well, I did do that. My last day is technically tomorrow, and I get to be escorted out by one of the nicest ladies in the world named Deb, and I feel like I'm gonna bawl my eyes out, and I'm not looking forward to that. So there's a little bit of tea for you. So a little bit of background why I decided to become a graphic designer. I was actually in college and it took me a very long time to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I took like 2 gap years at random times, changed my major several times. I was originally going for both biology and art, decided to drop one off, went for biology, was going the pre-med route for a while, and then decided that I didn't want to do that, forfeited a full ride scholarship, and then chose to go in the art direction. But that decision was met with a little less support from specific people like my dad and my ex's mom, just assuming that I'm gonna be like the starving artist trope and not successful and stuff like that. So when I decided to go for graphic design, there was a fire in my belly, a little bit of spite to prove those people wrong, to show them that I would make it and I would be good at it and do it well. And I really, really enjoyed graphic design. Not only do you get to do art, but you also get to help people visually communicate things that they're passionate about. My senior year in college, we got to work as like a functioning graphic design studio. So we got to work with like startup companies and stuff, making logos, and I always loved like putting extra thought and extra meaning into some like a seemingly simple mark. And I had a lot of fun with like the conceptual thinking that went into it. And then after I graduated, I was applying absolutely everywhere trying to get a job. I think I applied to over 200 places. And when you don't really have real working experience as a graphic designer, it's a little bit hard to get an entry-level position. That's why I feel extremely lucky and extremely thankful to my boss today for giving me that chance and letting me prove myself. I don't know, it's just crazy how it happened. When I went to the interview, I didn't even know that I was interviewing to work military. The ad that I responded to was just a wall of text. No formatting, no nothing. Oh, I'm playing with this, by the way. This was another squishy toy that I had. It was just a wall of text, and my GPS was like leading me to this interview that I agreed to go on, and it was in the middle of a field. The Space Force base was an Air Force base before it was Space Force. Space Force. So there's that bit of information. I also signed an NDA, but I think that it's fine that I say like where I worked. I'm not telling you the specific building or like the specific department, so I think that that's fine. I don't really know. I think it might have been more for my safety that I keep it secret rather than the company's safety, because I didn't know any secrets, but like if I got kidnapped or something and tortured for information, the US government wouldn't come after me and help me. I guarantee it. But if you're curious what the military needed with a graphic designer, graphic design is literally everywhere. Everywhere needs visual communication. It's a thing. I worked on site. We also did production, so I had to print and produce materials. So it wasn't just like the design part of it. It was kind of like working at a sign shop, I guess. But if you're thinking that that sounds really cool, that's about the only thing that's cool about it is the way that it sounds, because it sounds prestigious to work at the Space Force. So let's get into the negatives and why I decided to quit. First of all, the company that I worked for was god-awful. I don't know if you know how like government contracting works, because I definitely didn't when I went into it. So basically you have this spot at this location that doesn't change, but the company, the people that you work for, has the ability to change every like 2 to 3 years, 5 sometimes. It depends on the length of the contract. When I first started, we had a fantastic company, the Rolls-Royce of insurances. They were easy to get in touch with. They cared about their employees. They gave us bonuses and stuff at Christmas. They were just awesome. But 1 year into working there, our contract switched over and we got acquired by the shittiest company. For example, I put in my 2 weeks notice and I have not heard back from them. So I'm going to be gone by the time that they decide to respond to my email. There's absolutely no support. They actively made our jobs harder. And I also realized that I was making like 30% less than everybody else. And then when I brought that to their attention, they just kind of like blew me off. Didn't respond for a month, and then I don't know. It was a whole thing. I've talked about that before, but just the company was absolutely terrible and I didn't want to work for them anymore. Aside from that, it was a relatively stressful environment just because of the nature of where I worked. As a graphic designer, I never expected to be on call or have graphic design emergencies, which I am convinced do not exist. No one's ever like, hurry up and read this sign. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a thing. Like, don't get me wrong, visual communication is very important, but it's never an emergency. The only emergency was that like people forgot to request things and then needed it like next day. Or people would just like freak out and try to make things a bigger deal than they needed to be, which probably shouldn't say anything about the government. Never mind. But the Space Force series on Netflix is not far off. Although it does look a lot fancier on that series. I digress. So yeah, stressful in the way that the military can make it. And speaking of the military, as you can imagine, it's not exactly a place where creativity is embraced or flourishes in any way. I learned pretty quickly when I was able to like kind of free design something just how limited I was. I think I can count on one hand the amount of designs that I would put in a portfolio to try to get another graphic design position from working there for 3 years. And I think maybe just one. I think maybe just one design in my entire time working there would I be proud enough to like slide in a portfolio and show another potential employer. I was just like not very proud of the work that I was doing. I didn't feel creative. I stopped having an interest in it. And I also think I lost a lot of the skills that I had when I first graduated college, because I used to be like very good at Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign, and now I notice like I can barely use InDesign. Because like if you don't use it, you lose it. That's neither here nor there. Like I should have like kept up with it. I just didn't. I also realized I could have tried harder to still be creative within the scope of what the client wanted, which was what a good graphic designer does. So I definitely realized that there were things I maybe could have done to make it more fulfilling, but at a certain point I was just kind of over it. And right now I don't think I'd ever apply for another graphic design position. I'd probably just learn a new skill and go into another field. I think that unless you work for yourself and make your own rules, sometimes making a passion a career ruins it a little bit, which is what happened with me in graphic design. Oh, and also, like, when COVID hit, they just kind of gave us any laptop and told us that we could work from home, which didn't have a good enough graphics card to, like, run the programs, to run Photoshop or Illustrator or anything like that. So it was basically just an email machine. And that's when I started my YouTube channel. Because what else am I gonna do? That's on them, because I complained about that. I was like, I can't run any programs here. It takes me like 5 hours to scoot a text box across the screen. If I can get Photoshop to open, I don't know. It was a whole thing. I digress. Let's show you some more desk toys. So I had these little felt ghosts on my computer monitor, and there's still a bunch of sticky residue on it. So sorry about that, the next person who gets my spot. Stuffed Yetis. At one point I had 20 of these that I found in our storage room that I pinned all on an entire wall in my cubicle. So I had a wall of Yetis at one point, but then they got donated to children. Just kidding. But, well, they did get donated to children, but I'm not upset about that. We had this little mummy that I put a little leaf on for hair, and I made a little hat. And that was another thing, like we didn't get to take our cell phones or anything in there, so you had to entertain yourself. This little butterfly squishmallow, I love her. Oh, and dinosaurs. Christmas dinosaur. Squishy dinosaur. Another Christmas dinosaur with a bunch of gold dinosaurs that I tried to make a garland out of, but I don't know how to tie knots with fishing string, so it didn't quite work out. This little flickin' chicken. Woo. This was like a squishy thing that I tore apart and then stuffed inside another squishy thing. So many squishy things. Haven't even opened this. Oh, he got subject to everything that's on my floor. Gross. Oh, also another negative thing was there was no kind of elevation. Like the job that I had at that moment in time would be the job that I had in the next 10, 20 years if I had stayed there. Like there was no opportunity for promotion or advancement. It was just that, the monotony of that. Another negative was the lack of schedule. Ever since COVID happened, my 9 to 5 has been sporadic and it's incredibly hard to plan around. I got text messages at like 10 o'clock at night asking me to come in the next day. It just was a lot. And for someone who's like so chaotic as it is and to have absolutely zero structure in their life, I just was spiraling all the time. So we can't really talk about the negatives without talking about the positives and why I stayed for so much longer than what I had intended. The first thing, I did get paid more than the typical entry-level graphic designer at that location just because of the security clearance. The second positive and the biggest reason was the people. I absolutely love the people that I worked with. They made that job fun. They made that job interesting. I'm really gonna miss some people at that place except for Todd. I swear, tomorrow's gonna be rough. I've just been really in my head whether or not I'm making the right decision, if I'm making like this huge mistake, just because you got this thing that's relatively certain, right? Like my job was pandemic proof. I was a graphic designer like I wanted to be. I worked at a cool place, even though I didn't really enjoy the work. And I also loved the people that I worked with. And then you have this other thing that I'm doing, which is this huge unknown. No one knows how long it's gonna last, or I could get canceled tomorrow. And there's not really a solid blueprint for it. And the fact that I'm also kind of changing my content up is another reason why it's a little bit scary, because maybe there's not an audience for it. I don't know. But also I kind of realized that I was burning the candle at both ends. For example, every single Sunday, I would not sleep because I would be editing all night long. And I did that for a long time, which not exactly healthy, but I did what I wanted to do. I didn't want the YouTube thing to die just because my regular job was starting to get busy again. And I put off making a decision for a very long time because I was a little bit scared. Because like my whole life, I remember like thinking, okay, you gotta get a job that has insurance, that has benefits, that is stable and allows you to pay your bills. And then I got that, and here I am quitting to go into the great unknown 3 years later. It is extremely scary, but I know that if I didn't do this, if I had picked my day job over this, then I would have regretted it. Let's take this as a break to show you some 3D printed slugs. Love these. Very tactile. We got this squishy that is very reminiscent of a phallus, which was a big part of my job, putting phallic objects on posters and making it look like Michael Bay directed it. At one point I started making little shelves for like my extra special items. Like my coworker made me this chicken that I named Wonton, which is just adorable. And then she made me this littler chicken, which is baby Wonton. Or maybe I named him Gazpacho. I never ended up making him a little tag. But then I tried my hand at making a chicken, and I made Shaka Khan, which looks absolutely crazy. And I made her a little nest as well. And my craftsmanship is not as good as my coworkers, so it just looks like a Hot Mess Express. And I also made Cornflake, and he rappelled from the ceiling, and he has a little hat. And he looks batshit crazy too. Oh, and we all know the COVID apple. But the lore behind the COVID apple is basically just when COVID hit, we obviously didn't go back to the office, and I had left an apple in there, and when we came back, it was mummified. And so I kept it in my Museum of Oddities, which was my desk. There was this little thing. This lady named Connie made it. It was supposed to be a bunny, but I don't think she understood the assignment. And I thought it was really funny, so I kept it. Oh, and just to show you how professional I was, I bought like a 12-pack of these little gummy mushrooms, and I placed them all around the office, and they got stolen really quickly, but this one remained. Yeah, I don't really know what this video is or gonna be or how well it's gonna be received, because it's just kind of the ash can ramblings of a crazy person, but it was very cathartic for me to make, and I think running through all those reasons again, saying them out loud, the negative things, the reasons why I want to quit, and also the fact that I would definitely regret not focusing on YouTube and seeing what kind of opportunities could arise from focusing on content creation full time. It's very apparent to me that I'm making the right decision, and I'm excited. And I'm very nervous, honestly. And I'm definitely excited at the potential to like have some semblance of a schedule. Maybe sleep could be included. That would be great. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys again for like watching my channel, allowing me to talk about the things that interest me, allowing me to have a career that's based on being myself, which is insane. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for that, and I hope that you're having a wonderful day. And oh, I didn't show you the small boy. Look at him. Anyways, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.